going to be covering, as I say, certainly within the next hour, is going to be what the Stem the Flow competition is, how to get started going forward from today, the timescales and the planning for the project, workshops and tasks for the participants, how to submit an entry, and then a section specifically for West Partnership schools that I will cover towards the end. And then, as I say, some time at the end for any questions. So marine plastic pollution is a very topical subject in relation to our environment, and one that is very much in the public eye, which I'm sure why some of you are interested in taking part. Upstream Battle is our campaign to gather information, raise awareness, and to take action on marine litter by addressing the problem upstream at its source. Stem the Flow sits within the Upstream Battle programme. And some information about marine litter, which really makes this project so significant at the moment, and that is that 80% of marine litter actually comes from land. So it's essential that we stop the cycle of litter by preventing litter entering the watercourses in the first place, and that's exactly what Stem the Flow is. So Stem the Flow is a great opportunity for young people to engage with this issue. After two successful competitions in 2019 and 2022, which focused on the River Clyde and its tributaries, which some of you I know were involved in, so thank you for joining again if you were involved last year. We've secured a small amount of funding to deliver the competition on a national scale, which is fantastic. It opens it up to across Scotland and all of the schools that you work with. So the challenge is to design a solution to prevent source to sea litter in and around local inland watercourses, such as rivers, canals, lochs, burns, and also in cities and towns in drains, gutters, and water treatment. So the focus of the challenge is very much on preventing the litter at source. So participants must develop a way of either collecting litter that is already in the waterway or preventing it getting into them in the first place. So that is really the essence of the source to sea issue of marine litter. As I say, 80% starts on land, so it's essential that we tackle that problem at source. So I'm really pleased to see representation from across Scotland, inland cities and coastal villages. So thank you for joining from wherever you are. As I mentioned, Stem the Flow is all about preventing litter at source. So your pupils will have to investigate the pathways that litter takes to the sea in their local area. For example, if you're in a city, you might want to investigate which tributaries in your local area lead to a major river. And if you're on the coast, you might want to consider the catchment upstream to identify how litter might end up on your coastline. So why take part? Well, the project is a fantastic way to introduce the topic of marine pollution or to develop understanding by researching and investigating the issue in your local area. So it builds on existing eco-school and learning for sustainability curriculum activities that you might have done. If you've been in activities to do with World Ocean Day, for example, it will build on that prior learning that the participants will have. It supports participants to consider STEM or STEAM careers, particularly to introduce the career pathway in STEM subjects, which is why we'll have involvement from some industry professionals that I'll mention later on. And it's an amazing opportunity to learn from industry professionals, all of whom are also STEM ambassadors, and they're able to support your pupils and the participants in the project. So the project is aimed at P5, 6 to secondary 3 pupils. This is because it closely aligns with sort of like the careers objective and also the investigative aspect of the project. So it also makes younger ages aware of STEAM topics, and as I say, it can build on STEM topics that you've already covered. You're very welcome to enter multiple teams within the year group from the establishment. So they can be mixed age groups. So as I say, it's aimed at P5 to S3, but you can have mixed groups in there. Last year we had one group that was made up of some primary and secondary pupils as a transition program, which was very effective. So you are very welcome to enter multiple teams within the year group. However, each design must be different. For example, if you were to look at a class project, an essential aspect of that is team working and project management. So they will be working in smaller teams in your class to come up with a different design. If you have a STEM or an eco club or an eco schools eco committee, this is a fantastic long-term project for them to get involved in. A member of teaching staff should also support the teams during the project to facilitate project tasks and as a main contact for the participants, so emails from myself and emails from industry supporters. There's a detailed guidance booklet for the competition, which is available on the STEM the Flow webpage, and this is aimed at the participants themselves as a resource to guide them through the project, but it does give quite detailed information for yourselves as well of what it's all about. So getting started with the project, from today's webinar, this is I'll give details on how to acknowledge that you're participating, but from today's webinar it's kind of over to you really, because there's no official start, there's only an official end, which is the submission date. So from today you can have a look at the booklet, look at the resources and discuss with your pupils to take part in the project. So you can start by gaining some background knowledge, for example, using eco schools evidence or existing work that you've done, and you can go out and investigate the issue further. So focus on what the issue is in your local area. If you, as I say, if you do eco school work and you might have done a litter survey or a waste audit as part of your eco school, you can look at that data and use that to support the actions that pupils can take. And you can also look to connect with other establishments within your learning community to get a broader picture. So as I say, you might want to see if they have done a litter pick and see if the information is the same, to gather that data on your local area more widely. I'll also be running a information webinar for the participants, so much like today, but with a bit more information about what source to sea litter is, and that will be on the 19th of September. It'll be during a lunch break. I haven't got the times on this one, I'm sorry, that's on the next slide, but it's 1:30 till 2:30 and the same time of all the workshops. So 1:30 till 2:30 on the 19th of September, I'll be running an information webinar for the participants and the pupils themselves. So the challenge timescale is really up to yourselves and your lesson schedule, but it's suggested that the project is a term-long project, and it can take sort of like 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how much time you spend on it. Last year we had eco committees who only met once a week at lunchtime, so they therefore spent an hour a week on it. Or if you feel that you could make time within scheduled timetable for this activity, as I say, that is completely up to you, but it is designed to be sort of like 6 to 8 weeks, and that is very much part of the planning process for the participants. The only strict deadline is the 8th of December, which seems like a very long time away, but there's a bit to cover in that time. So that is the submission deadline, which is the 8th of December. So there are multiple ways in which the pupils can manage the project, either using a Gantt chart, for example, or a timetable, but as I say, very much part of the project is making that project plan and the process in which to come up with a solution. So to provide participants with a bit of background to the topics relating to the challenge, there will be online workshops throughout the challenge. So the workshops will be delivered by our industry partner, Jacobs Engineering, which is supporting the STEM the Flow project. And the themes will be similar to the previous STEM the Flow competition. So if you were involved, they will be quite similar, but the content will be different. And they'll be held from 1:30 till 2:30 via Teams. We haven't, they're delivered by the STEM ambassadors at Jacobs, who have only just got their work schedule. So I don't have exact dates right now, but I will be making sure I get dates for the workshops, in the next couple of weeks. But they're going to be monthly workshops, September, October, November and December, throughout the project. Teams are encouraged to participate in feedback and interaction with the workshop leader. So as a result, it's not possible to record the whole workshop. It's only the second half. Sorry, it's only the first half that will be recorded, because the second half will be quite an interactive session with the workshop leader where the participants can ask any questions. So only the first half, which is more of a presentation, will be recorded. So it is, if your pupils are able to make it, then that's highly recommended, so they don't miss out on that interactive and feedback Q&A section of the workshop. So moving on to the project tasks, what they have actually got to do. So we ask that the participants produce a scientific poster and build a model for the STEM the Flow competition, and that acts as their entry submission at the end. The scientific posters are a common method for demonstrating project work, particularly in STEM subjects and academic work. And there's an editable template, it's trickier to say than I thought, to follow. You more than welcome to use the editable template, or you can create your own. And there's also lots of information online and within the guidance booklet on how to create a scientific poster. It's a good idea for the participants to keep notes throughout the project, for example, in the design process and when they're coming up with ideas, because that will all feed into the scientific poster, where there's a conclusion and information on their design. The participants must also create a model of their design, so a model of their final design that they come up with. This supports the participants' understanding of prototypes and construction, which will also be one of the workshops, is how to design models and how to create prototypes. And it's a great way to conclude the project by having a physical model to show their idea. It can be made of any materials available, from craft materials that you might have to digital printing, depending on what resources you have available. If you do have any questions, or there are any particular barriers with creating a physical model, please do let me know. We'll certainly look at opportunities and ways that we can support your pupils in doing that. So all the entries will be submitted electronically. So although there's a physical model, you'll submit a photo of the physical model. As part of the final submission, participants will upload a PDF version of their scientific poster, along with 3 photos, 1 of the final design and 2 from another aspect of the project, for example, from their investigation or from a design meeting. And there'll also be a small ask to create a blurb which can be used on the website, and I've put a note there that the coordinated staff maybe might want to write that, just so that it's different to what the pupils have written for their scientific poster. So, excuse me. So as I say, an electronic submission of the scientific poster, a good quality image of the final design, and some other good quality images of the process, and that will be what will be submitted to the judging. So the judging will take place after the submission deadline of the 8th of December. We're hoping that there will be a public vote. If any of you have ever taken part in our pocket garden competition, we're very similar. You create a physical garden and then submit a photo of it, and then there's a public vote where we ask members of the public to vote on their favourite design. Well, it will be much similar to that, and will also involve the industry professionals, Jacobs, and some representatives from KSB, and we'll have a vote to come up with the winners. There'll be awards available for best design, best overall design, most sustainable design, and best teamwork, along with some others. So, and the categories will be split into primary and secondary. So there'll be primaries will be judged together and secondaries will be judged together as well. So the next slides are specifically for West Partnership schools. We've had a small amount of funding from the West Partnership to offer some additional aspects of the project to West Partnership schools, as we have done in the past. So please do stay around for this section, even if you're not in the West Partnership, because there'll be a Q&A section at the end. So for West Partnership schools, we're happy to offer a couple of extra things as part of the STEM the Flow, which is to the STEM ambassadors will have the opportunity to work with an industry mentor from Jacobs, who will be able to answer questions from participants. Due to the number of teams registered in interest, it's likely that each mentor will have more than one team. And the mentors have volunteered their time to STEM the Flow on top of their day job. So therefore, the amount of engagement with the teams may be variable. However, it's planned that the mentors have one meeting, such as a video call, with their teams once a month, and email correspondence throughout the time. Any further engagement to this, such as additional meetings or in-person visits, is a subject to the mentor's workload. And the mentors will be allocated to the teams at the end of September. So it's vital that you've confirmed that you'll be taking part by then. West Partnership schools will also have a couple of extra tasks to complete after the online submission in December. Participants are required to create a display and a presentation about their project to be presented at an exhibition after Christmas. So the display should be a full-size version of the scientific poster, which are often A1 or A0. We're also very happy to be able to once again host an in-person exhibition event for schools from the West Partnership. Will be held at the Riverside Museum. This event is an opportunity for the teams to showcase their project and to representatives from the challenge, other schools and the public. Awards will be presented for different categories in line with the online submission for schools across Scotland. So as mentioned at the start, this year's national competition is a pilot, which we've received a small amount of funding for. So it's very much hoped that we'll be able to offer these final engagement activities to all schools in the future with successful funding. So it'd be great to have everybody be able to come and hold an exhibition for no matter where you are in Scotland. But as you can imagine, that is subject to funding at the moment. So I'm going to finish off with a short video from a previous competition. I've realised I might need to just reshare with sound. So sorry about that. I just need to stop sharing briefly.
young people never cease to amaze me. I mean, their innovative thinking is quite amazing in terms of technology and their solutions, but also the way they've engaged on the bigger picture and how they actually address the whole issue of litter getting into the water course. Upstream battle certainly for me has been one of the best things I've seen in education, and I've been in it a long time.
So just a couple of take-home messages before you either go or stay for a quick Q&A, which so I hope that you've been inspired by this webinar and that you would like to take part in STEM the Flow. Ask that you confirm via email whether you'll be taking part in the challenge and ideally how many pupils you think will participate by the end of the day on Friday the 15th, which isn't too long, I'm afraid. But and I know you just still be getting settled into the year, but this will make it a lot easier for me to plan the activities and get the dates in for the workshops for all of the schools involved. And importantly, so that I don't keep hassling you with emails if you've decided that it's not something you'd like to take forward. So I'll be using the same spreadsheet that you registered to attend this webinar with. So if any information has changed, such as the age group taking part or the coordinating staff member, please do let me know in the email. So as I say, if you could email me with your school, your number of participants that you might be involved in the project, that would be great. As mentioned, the guidance booklet is aimed at the participants, but has pretty much all the information you and they need for the competition. But if you do have any specific questions, please do get in touch. And it would be great to get as many schools as possible taking part. So please continue to promote the competition within your learning communities and network. As I say, they haven't missed out on anything. This recording will be available on the STEM the Flow webpage, so anybody who would like more information can refer back to this or, of course, email me. And finally, it may seem like a very long way off, but please do make a note now of the submission deadline. It's quite a big project, as I've said, so if you can only allocate a small amount of time a week, it might come around quite quick, especially with the October break, for example. So the submission deadline of Friday, the 8th of December. It's a fantastic project to get involved with. So as I say, I hope you have been inspired to get involved and that this is an opportunity for your pupils to address, as I said right back at the start, an absolutely vital environmental issue that I'm sure is very relatable to your school community. So thank you very much for registering your interest and for joining this afternoon. My email address is just there, and there's a link to the Upstream Battle campaign, which, as I say, is our wider campaign in which STEM the Flow sits. If you have been involved in any of our climate action schools work, you'll know how to get there as well. So now it's just any questions, and if you don't have anything, then thank you very much for joining, and I hope to hear from you very soon. Please do feel free to either unmute or put any questions in the chat. How do we know if you're a West Partnership school? So the West Partnership is the schools around the southwest of Scotland, or sorry, it's the west of central Scotland. So there will be the local authorities are Glasgow City, North and South Lanarkshire, East and West Dunbartonshire, East Renfrewshire, and Renfrewshire, and Inverclyde. So if you're in any of the West Partnership local authorities, then that is applicable to you. Would it be worth taking part when we're over 2 miles? Absolutely, yes. Yeah, please don't let your location be a barrier to taking part in the challenge. You can look, as you've said, you can have a look at the drains or any water treatment works in the area, and you'd be absolutely surprised that there'll be a tiny trickle somewhere very close to you, that all of them will lead to a major river, which will then, of course, lead to the sea. So you'll be amazed if you look, investigate the area, how close you actually are to this issue. So I don't, yeah, as I say, I don't wish location to be a barrier for anyone. So thank you. Mrs. Henderson is asking if it needs to be a river. No, it can be absolutely anything. If you're on the coast, then it might be worth looking further inland to see where the litter may be coming down to your coastline. As I say, this could be gutters or drains, and it can also be natural waterways such as rivers or burns. Mrs. Mooney is asking about the a specific document. No, if you could just email me with your school name, the number of pupils that you might or you hope would take part, and the coordinating staff member, if it's different from yourself that's emailing, that would be great. So it's just, yeah, just a general email and I'll get back to you. I was going to do another form, but I thought that might be a bit form overload. So do just send me an email. Mrs. Hendry is asking if 28 pupils in P5, that would be several, because we would ask for them to be in smaller teams, so maybe teams of 5 or 6, so they could do that in small teams. So if you'd like to get involved in splitting up into a small team and then they each come up with a different design, then that would be applicable. And also if there's a maximum number per group. I haven't set a maximum number because it could be different for different age groups that are involved, but I would say that 5 or 6 is the optimum number for a team, because they should each be looking at different roles within the team, and when it coming together to have a meeting, and a design planning meeting might be really useful. Vicky has brought up the very valid point about our marine schools, our coastal schools. So I completely empathise with that. You will probably see the impact more so than anybody. So as I say, 80% of litter is actually coming from inland water courses. So for your pupils to have a think about how they could address that as an issue, then I hope will be very valuable. I'm not sure if Mrs. Patterson has joined this webinar today, but they have a very active group in Ullapool, who, if you have a look at Ullapool's group, then they've done just that, been on the coast, but looked at how the inland watercourses are affecting their environment. Ms. McCurl asking, is it a more practical project or theoretical? Do they have to build the solution to identify the problem? That's a really interesting question. It's a bit of both. The investigative aspect is key. So it's thinking about the local area and identifying the issues to then come up with a solution for it. So, for example, if we were to take a marine litter example, then you might have a net on the back of a boat that trawls litter, or you might have drones that identify where the litter is in the ocean. So those are two different approaches for effectively the same issue, but it's investigating which one would be better. You'll notice that I'm using a marine example there. There are a lack of terrestrial prevention methods, which is why stem the flow, the challenge is so important, because if we had more preventative methods inland, there would be less marine litter in general. So having a think about the issue specifically in your area, I think, is important, and that will inform the solution, inform the design that the pupils come up with. And finally, we've got a question about the presentation. Yes, I can put a copy of the presentation on the STEM Flow web page at the same time as the recording of the webinar. So that will be there. So where you registered to attend the webinar, the same web page, they'll be there. I think I might have caught them. Nicola, let me know if I've missed any questions that I don't think I've covered. But if not, we'll stop the recording there. Thank you very much for joining. If you have any other questions, then do hold on, but otherwise